virus confirmed. The scene opens with France, 1917. This was the year that the flu epidemic killed 50 million people worldwide. These German soldiers walk down in this trench, start killing people, one bullet each. Then this girl starts singing 99 Red Balloons and goes into this fantasy world of the red balloons as the Germans shoot the red balloons instead of people in the head. And then at the end of this is basically 12 Monkeys, which is all about a virus strain that kills people. And they're announcing that 12 Monkeys is the series is going to restart. You guys, I don't know what all this means, but it confirms all of the patterns that we just found over the last 3 weeks we've been working on this. It proves that all of this is not in our heads, that the 99 red balloons did in fact have something to do with this virus strain that they're planning. And now they're coming right out and telling us this, planning all the way back to 1984. You guys, get right with God, get right with Christ. That's all you can do. Try to listen to the signs.
Citizens do have the right to privacy. You may only search with the proper authorization. Let the council decide that, General. These are some kind of plans. Design specifications for construction of flying balloon.
I've always wanted to build a flying balloon.
It's not a practical theory, Cornelius. Every time apes have tried to build flying balloons, they have crashed.
This one looks different than ours. It might just work.
Here's the air valve we need.
Forget it. It's of no use to us now.
What happened, Cornelius?
Some of the plans are missing. So there's no one we can ask for help.
Really? What about Bill and Jeff?
Zira, you are a genius.
Not really. If I were a genius, I would have thought about our astronaut friends before.
Enter the stars. And people put so much faith in the military, in our government, in NASA. And they think that these entities are benevolent. But nothing could be further from the truth. And they're telling us what they're doing. And we allow them to get away with it. This is actually a government article, their own article, in which they admit to popping these balloons over San Francisco in 1950. Yet, they show the entire history that this Serratia bacteria was a known pathogen leading up to the San Francisco balloon pops. It's right here in black and white, you guys. Now here's the history. Human infections caused by the Serratia species. Right here in black and white. 1933. It says here, documents received from sources that contain notes with experiments conducted by Germans in Paris, first on August 18, 1933. German agents released the bacteria near ventilation shafts at various locations at Paris Metro, including Place de la Concorde and probably other sites. But it goes on. So you see that in 1949, they began, the congressional hearings revealed this to the rest of the world. Okay, so meningitis in a U.S. Army soldier in 1942, again before San Francisco, caused by the bacteria. Soldier complained of having cold-like symptoms, including a cough at the time. In 3 days, he had signs and symptoms of meningitis. So we have proof that they knew that it caused meningitis. They identified the bacteria. They don't know where the bacteria came from. Then again in 1948, again before San Francisco, fatal endocarditis caused by the bacteria in San Francisco in 1951. They were talking about that a year before the first probable case of the bacteria UTI was described by Guevich and Weber, who described a 61-year-old male who admitted in December 1948, again the year before, in Jerusalem, Israel, with acute bronchopneumonia. A week after admission, the patient had dysuria and a red pigment in organism. A red pigment in organism identified as Serratia. It was recovered from the urine along with E. coli and staph. So they knew. Bottom line. Now they go on to talk about the U.S. subcommittee hearing where they called out the military and asked them why they were blowing up these balloons over San Francisco. And this was all prompted by a death and lots of sicknesses, pneumonia, upper respiratory, urinary tract infections. Sickened people in the San Francisco area. A guy sued. I'm trying to get an interview with him. He may not want to talk about this. His life may have been threatened. They even go as far as to say Germany was using this in the subway system of Paris in 1933. Sickening people. Experimentation on humans is unacceptable. Culling humans is unacceptable. That is the problem. Homefront, a video game. To promote the release of this video game, they released 10,000 red balloons all across San Francisco, which all landed in the bay, caused an uproar with the local citizens. Here's some images of it. All these balloons were launched for a video game. Video game maker includes San Francisco in the video game. It's one of the towns or cities that's prominently shown, but the video game maker is from Los Angeles. It might not be the people actually making the balloons or making the video games doing this, but you have to ask yourself, who is controlling them? This is the beginning of something much larger, much bigger than we could ever imagine. The movie It is coming out. And look at this. Australia, where reportedly they're experiencing the biggest outbreak, the flu outbreak in their history. They're tying red balloons, and now we know what the red balloons really mean, bacterial strains. They are tying red balloons on these grates all across Sydney. This is unbelievable. Imposing their sick horror onto the citizens in Sydney. All over the city, they are tying these red balloons to the crate, which is what happens in the film It. And it says, "It is closer than you think. It is closer than you think. It is closer than you think. It is closer than you think." It movie in cinemas September 7th. Look at this. Well, guys, all I can say is this is unbelievable. And if you're still in doubt about the 99 red balloons sang by Nina 33 years ago has anything to do with San Francisco and the red balloons launched in 1950, I'm going to put that to rest. All your doubts will be answered here. Because the first time that Nina ever came on tour in the United States. Remember, this was the top pop artist of 1984. The first time she ever came on tour in the United States was last year, 322 days before the eclipse. Now, 322 days before the eclipse marks October 3rd. This was the 26th anniversary of German reunification. They took that day off in the middle of the tour. The tour was only 3 days long. The tour ended on October 4th. This October date, October 4th, just so happens to have 88 days remaining in the year. This was the last day of their tour. It began in San Francisco and ended in New York, coast to coast. And much like the eclipse with the balloons that were launched by NASA, coast to coast, Nina brought her 99 red balloons back. This from the series Colony. Now, I just finished season 2 last year, now season 3's up, so I thought I'd take a look at it. And basically there's a resistance, and there's this alien presence that arrives on Earth, locks everybody in this wall, behind this wall, right, called the Colony. Well, some of them escape, and they form a resistance, and they're going to try to like free everybody with this technology that they were able to steal from the aliens. But here's the interesting part. We were just talking about Operation Sea Spray on this channel 2 days before this episode even aired. We talked about it in the past also before, like last year, but we just recently revisited it 2 days before this episode aired, so it's kind of shocking. And then this episode is called Puzzle Man. This guy decodes the puzzle pieces, and here they actually show that biological targeting as he's taping together these shredded pieces of paper to try to find out the next move of the aliens. And then here you see Project Sea Spray. And Project Sea Spray was all about these biologicals that they use. It's exactly what it was, that they knowingly sprayed on people in San Francisco.
You ready?
They already knew this was a pathogen. They had done studies on it in the years leading up to this. And basically one person died and a lot of people got sick. So it was in fact biological targeting.
Then we use LA to build a bioweapon. The first step will be to repopulate the block.
All of this, everything you think is going to happen here, it's already happening.
What?
In Seattle.
This is the Soradia marcescens, the miracle bacillus. It is from the bacillus family, which means it is a bacteria, and it causes what appears to be blood on bread. Now, throughout history, they would attribute this to a miracle, saying that this was the blood of Christ. Because remember, Christ said, "This is my body." And as this bacteria appeared, they began to believe back in history that it had to do with the blood of Christ. The first time it appeared was in the 6th century BC. And it went on throughout history. There were several popes that claimed it as a miracle. But the United States government, this red bacteria, they launched in balloons. Yes, the red bacteria that appears on bread was launched in balloons. And these are the 99 red balloons. Let's read about this, and it made people sick. Soradia is an opportunistic pathogen that strikes the weakened body. It's spelled out right there in black and white. Biologists once thought that S. marcescens was a non-pathogenic, and because of the pigment it produces, it was used widely to trace bacterial transmission. Since 1906, physicians used the bacteria to study how epidemics get started, because this bacterium generally was considered to be harmless. But in the 1950s, the U.S. Army conducted a study called Operation Sea Spray to study wind currents that might carry biological weapons. They filled balloons with this bacteria, this red bacteria. These are the red balloons from the 1950s. And burst them over San Francisco just to see where the harmless red bacteria would land. However, shortly thereafter, doctors noted a drastic increase in pneumonia and urinary tract infections. Only since the 1960s did microbiologists recognize that this bacteria as an opportunistic human pathogen. In the hospital, it tends to colonize the respiratory and urinary tracts of adults rather than the gastrointestinal tract. This is a bacteria that causes illness. They burst the red balloons over San Francisco. In most cases, the infections have occurred in people who have compromised immune system or who are aged. Well, we know that NASA launched 50 balloons during the eclipse, and we know that that was some kind of a ritual pointing back to the 99 Red Balloon song from 1984. Let me tell you how insidious that this could possibly be. UV light kills 99.9% of bacteria. When are UV light levels lower? During an eclipse. That is when the maximum number of bacteria will survive in the upper stratosphere. And maybe that is why NASA launched these balloons during the eclipse, not to study the mutations, which is what we originally thought, but to allow for the maximum number of these bacteria to survive. And we know that this is probably all linked in to now. So now that we're armed with the truth, we can all keep our eye out. On the 26th and 27th of September 1950, the U.S. Navy conducted the secret experiment Operation Sea Spray, the one we just talked about, in which some of this red bacteria was bursting in balloons over San Francisco. The Navy later claimed the bacteria was harmless, but beginning in September 29th, 11 patients in a local hospital developed a very rare urinary tract infection, and one of the individuals died. Cases of pneumonia in San Francisco also increased after the release. The first indications of problems with the flu vaccine produced by Chiron Corporation in 2004 involved this bacteria contamination. Between 1949 and 69, open-air tests of biological agents were conducted 239 times.
Gas. He's gonna kill everybody!
He stole my balloons! Why didn't somebody tell me that he had one of those things? Gotham City Cathedral, Transportation 2.
Now, this trailer, again, came out yesterday, March 29th, which just so happens to be the 88th day of the year. And it is also, yesterday was Piano Day, World Piano Day. A piano has 88 keys. And they say, you know, when they talk about Piano Day, they say that's why they chose March 29th, because it is the 88th day and it aligns with the 88 keys on the piano. Now, this is interesting because this is the It film 2017 coming out later this year on September 8th, on 9/8. Now, Bill Skarsgård actually plays the creepy clown. He was born on 8/9. 8/9, 9/8. And it is about these clowns that show up every 27 years and terrorize these kids. Okay. Now, there are 7 kids in the plot of the book. We're looking at the book now. This all starts in 1957. Okay. Now, what I want you to understand about 1957, we looked at the frequency of Saturn and being 528. Then we looked at the factors of that number, 528 hertz. This is the frequency signal that Saturn is giving off. And we noticed that all other double digits are accounted for except for the 5 and the 7. We have 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. We don't have 5, 5. We have 6, 6. We don't have 7, 7. And we have 8, 8. So the fact that these clown deaths in the novel begin in 1957 aligns directly with Saturn. And the fact that these deaths happen every 27 years also aligns with Saturn. Why, Casey? Well, because here's Saturn here. And I searched the page for the number 27. And look, Saturn's got 27 all over it. Surface area, 4.27. Volume, 8.27. Mass, 1.2530 times 10 to the 27th. And this goes on and on and on as we're looking at the specs of the planet Saturn. There's even a moon that is at a tilted angle from the planet. That's actually a Phoebe ring. It's a ring, and it's tilted at 27 degrees as well. So this is the truth about this film. Now, this is probably expected because it is an occult film. It is a horror film. The point I'm trying to get you guys to understand here is how embedded and ingrained this Saturnalia cult is.
And while in transit, because the atmosphere is such an extreme environment, you could really have an intense selection on whatever cells are actually aloft. So what you could be ending up with is a very different population from the one that was initially mobilized into the air. You could be really selecting for the hardiest microorganisms, which are going to be able to land, and if they survive, proliferate in a very different environment. And this observatory, which is located at the tip of that red arrow, you can see a small house at the summit of Mount Bachelor, Central Oregon, has for decades been capturing Asian air pollution. So there's a crew of atmospheric scientists there that are interested in studying things like mercury that's blowing over and coal emissions from Asia. More recently, they captured radionuclides after the meltdown at Fukushima. So this site is a world-class location to capture air that is coming across the Pacific Ocean and sometimes from Asia.
The cherry blossom tree was the name of the balloons that the Japanese launched into the United States using the jet stream. Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. Unfortunately, the poisonous balloons never reached the United States because we dropped the bomb first. But that was their plan, was to spread bubonic plague, cholera, and smallpox. We also had confirmed reports of some of the balloons that were dropped that actually had bombs on them that killed people. And though no plague balloons made it to the States, here are all the confirmed sightings of the balloons that did make it to the West Coast and central part of the United States that were bombs that actually exploded, in which people died. Their plan was to prepare a long-distance attack on the United States, Cherry Blossoms at Night, and it was finalized in March. They loaded plague-infected fleas. They wanted to fly them across the Pacific Ocean, launch them out of submarines. The plan was to release biological weapons against America. They considered releasing 200 pounds of plague-carrying fleas at the Battle of Bataan, about 150 million insects, in 10 separate attacks. And in early July 1944, during the Battle of Saipan, when the war was turning against Japan, plague-infested fleas were again intended to be used against American combatants. However, the Japanese submarine carrying the fleas was sunk by American submarine Swordfish. Then in 1944, they did succeed in launching 9,300 incendiary anti-personnel bombs. We just showed you the map on that. Carried by balloons, which were designed to rise 30,000 feet, swept eastward by the jet stream to the continental United States. 6 people were killed in Oregon, and the nuclear reactor coolant pump was blown up at the Manhattan Project's product facility at the Hanford site. We heard that come up. This is real. And after further examination of the episode, God help the United States. Here at the Cherry Blossoms, this is real. As he puts the rat, remember that's rat poison, into the snake cage with the cobra, and in the background you see the cherry blossoms. Sacrifice of youth. That's what the cherry petals falling to the ground represented. On the eve of the eclipse, August 20th, 2017, the first episode of a series called The Last Ship aired. And it was all about the red rust virus. Now, up to this point, everything we've been talking about is the 99 red balloons 33 years ago, in which the music video showed 33 on a battlefield. We've been talking about the Metallica video that was all about a zombie virus launched by balloons. We also saw 33 years ago the Visitors. In one of the final episodes of that series, they launched red dust from balloons. In the Red Dawn 33 years ago. And the synchronicities go on and on and on. So I was not surprised to see the red rust virus in this episode on the eve of the eclipse. Remember, NASA launched 50 balloons over the entire track of the eclipse path over the entire United States on the eclipse. Now, I've not watched this episode yet, but I am almost positive that we will see clues about the red dust. Now, this particular episode seems to be about a red rust that turns all the crops red. Here's the corn. Now, I'll be honest with you, I skipped forward because I wanted to see how this would tie into the eclipse, which is how I found this episode that aired on the eve of the eclipse. And but I'm actually on season 1. But as far as I can tell from season 1, what this is about is a virus that takes over the earth, and all that's left on the planet are a few rogue places like islands of people and a few ships left on the earth. And the one ship has a scientist on it that has the primordial strain that they got from the Arctic that is going to help them find the cure to this virus. So the whole series is based on this ship and this crew and this scientist and how they survive, and they have to refuel and get food and all this stuff. So that's what kind of builds the series. So in the opening scenes of this episode, though, fast forwarding to the 4th season, we see the red corn. Let's see what else is going on in this episode. So this time, instead of the strain affecting the world's population of people, it now affects the crops. So apparently the timeline of the story has changed. So apparently what is affected by the strain has changed in these 4 seasons. Looks like the world's population has recovered somewhat, but now there is a shortage of crops.
The red flu was originally a plant virus, Master Chief. She only jumped back to plants when we humans developed immunity.
So if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you'll understand what you're looking at on the right-hand side of the screen, and that is the Panobacillus xerothermidurans bacteria that was launched in balloons by NASA during the eclipse. So that would have happened the very next day after this aired. Simply unbelievable. We saw this also in the animated film called Leap, which also had references to the bacteria. And this is Leap, or Ballerina, it was renamed. This is an animated film, and the storyline is that a girl who's in an orphanage in Brittany, the rural part of France, she leaves the orphanage and goes to Paris. Now, we detected some kind of spiritual shift during the eclipse that happened on the 233rd day of the year with 133 remaining. Okay, and a third of the angels fell from heaven, which is 33%. And then the people at the Strain FX tweeted that the Master is here on the eclipse. The Master being the lead demon in that series. So we sensed this spiritual shift. We also saw hexagonal spores dropped over the United States in the path of the eclipse from NASA, from these balloons. Of course, the hexagon is on the North Pole of Saturn. So we know there's a spiritual shift. And now what they're doing is they're releasing this ballerina, which is what it was renamed, but it was called Leap, very close to the date of the eclipse. And here's the bombshell. Further into the film, they depict this spore that we had already identified before I even watched this film inside the bar as she's dancing in the bar. So we find the spore. This spore was released during the eclipse. This film is releasing in a few days after the eclipse. They released a bunch of these spores over the top of us, over the eclipse path. And as we know, why is it necessary for them to release or fly these over our heads during an eclipse? The path of the balloons was over the entire United States. They could have easily recreated this any other way, this experiment. They did not have to fly balloons over the most populated part of the United States during the eclipse. This was done on purpose. We do know that these bacteria can mutate. We know this. Here's the bombshell right here. The boy actually says biological mutation, and he sneezes.
I have great news too. My boss finally spoke to me. He said, "Get off my foot, you biological mutation!" That's good, right?
And then he sneezes, sniffles, biological mutation. This is everything we've been talking about. We know that certain strains of the Painobacillus, like such as the larval strain, can cause foul brooding in honeybees. We also know that it can infect patients where they previously were not aware that the Painobacillus was lethal to humans or can infect humans. We have several instances of the Painobacillus, other strains infecting humans. These are case studies. This isn't me making this up. This is the truth. Now, they have no idea how this Painobacillus will react in the upper atmosphere. They have no idea, okay? Starving it of all oxygen, they have no idea. Here's a case of two different Painobacillus put in close contact with one another that created a lethal protein. It actually mutated. And so what I'm seeing here is that they're trying to force a reaction. They're not trying to do anything at all other than force this spore to do something. And they figure if they shoot it in the upper atmosphere above all of our heads, that it could somehow activate this spore. Now, as far as we know, this was only released over the eclipse path of the United States. I've been trying to warn everyone about this for a very long time, actually. And here we are. Now we have no idea what this is going to do, but I can tell you this, flu season is here. They could easily blame this on some kind of flu strain. But I've got eyes on this, and I'm not going to give up. And if I start seeing some crazy flu outbreak, and I have a feeling we have not seen the end of this spore. This spore is going to show up again and again and again. And we will keep our eyes peeled for it. And we will expose these people. And of course, the Lady Liberty story, which was also in the strain when they blew up Lady Liberty. And it was also, here's Lady Liberty. This is the final part as she's being chased up Lady Liberty to the top here. Sol Invictus, Statue of Liberty is Sol, S-O-L, that's the acronym, Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. They worship the sun. That's why this eclipse was such a big deal. The birthday of Sol Invictus is December 25th, Christmas. It is the false Christ, the Antichrist.
This is the only crown you will touch today.
This is the only crown you will touch today.
Now, another thing I wanted to note is that the word orphan comes from Orphic. We're saying here that the root word of an orphan comes from the original orphans from heaven. They were the first orphans. Here, this is the Orphic egg. It shows a serpent wrapped around an egg. It shows a serpent wrapped around an egg. It shows a serpent wrapped around an egg. In ancient Greek Orphic tradition, the cosmic egg was hatched, the primordial hermaphroditic deity. This is Satan. He's a hermaphrodite. He is sexless. They go on to name all these hermaphroditic deities: Phanes, Zeus, Pan, Of course, we've covered a lot of stuff about Pan, Eros, and the egg is depicted as a serpent wrapped around it. The original orphan was a hermaphrodite. And here you see the spore appear again in this final part of the episode near the crab trap. And we're seeing real-time synchronicities playing out. We're going to cover those in a minute. But this is a new series that I started watching, The Mist, just yesterday. Before this strange mist descended over Great Britain, over the beaches there, and sickened 233 people. So it's unbelievable, because in this third episode of The Mist, they show us the red balloons. Now, what are they doing with these balloons? Well, 33 years ago, the song 99 Red Balloons came out, and we talked all about the synchronicities surrounding that and the significance of it. That this is all about some kind of a strain. And they let these balloons off. They're trapped in this mall, and they let these balloons off to try to signal for help with notes attached to them.
We talked about this.
And I guess what she's doing here is writing notes as the mist is surrounding them, and she's writing notes on these balloons that she's going to release into the air. Please help, we're in the mall. Shocking. And they release the balloons off into the mist. To call for help. Now, as we discussed in previous videos, the opposite date, the mirror date of the eclipse is May 12th. Listen.
6 people were killed by wildfire here in Ridgeville on May 12th in 1860.
So obviously you heard that. That's May 12th, the mirror date of the eclipse. We're seeing eclipse overlays again in this series that came out earlier this year. This is just bizarre, you guys. Red balloons, the mist. We had that crazy killer mist that came in the UK just today. And it's, oh, how do they know all this? It's almost as if they are showing us in these TV shows before it happens. What the heck is going on in the UK as a chemical haze drifts on shore at a beachy head? This is unbelievable. This report is saying 233 victims. That's the day of the year the eclipse happened, in which these balloons were launched from the United States. Now, all of the foreshadowing said that the impact was going to be on the United States. All of the films, the movies, the music videos, even the lyrics to 99 Red Balloons talks about opening portals in a toy shop. Buy a bag of balloons with the money we've got. Set them free at the break of dawn. Red balloons. Till one by one they are gone. Back at base, sparks in the software flash a message. Something out there. Floating in the summer sky, 99 red balloons go by. Panic bells, it's red alert. There's something here from somewhere else. The alien threat. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye and focuses on the sky. The 99 red balloons go by. Call the troops. This is it, boys. War. And when did 99 red balloons release? The same day of the eclipse that will happen in 2024. April 8th. And guess what the Hebrew year is of the year 2024? It's 5784. So this release date points forward to the second eclipse that will cross America. chlorine gas coming on the beaches of the UK following the jet stream. So I'm trying to figure this out. Wars and rumors of wars. Here's the jet stream that just came over from the United States, and it's hitting the beaches of the UK where there's this chlorine gas. Here it is right here. The beaches of the UK are the first ones to get hit by the jet stream. So I looked up chlorine and bacteria, and apparently chlorine kills pathogens such as bacteria. So now I'm wondering if they know that America launched something and they were maybe chemtrailing chlorine gas into the sky to kill any bacteria that might be coming over from the jet stream. See, when you use your critical thinking, you understand chlorine gas just doesn't come from nowhere. When you watch these animations of this jet stream, and you see that all of the air that was over the United States during the eclipse is now hitting the shores of England, you understand that maybe they were chemtrailing the skies, trying to sterilize them, and then all of it settled into the beaches of the UK. 233 hospitalized. They were wearing hazmat suits. People had breathing problems. They describe it as a chemical mist. 16-mile segment of East Sussex coastline was evacuated Sunday afternoon. Locals are told to shut their doors and windows after the cloud left beachgoers with concerning symptoms. Announced a major incident and treated hundreds of bank holiday makers after the unexplained gas cloud crept inland onto beaches. Here it says dramatic pictures of the cloud, distinctively yellow haze, and witness reports mentioning strong smells have sparked speculation that the mist may contain chlorine gas. They're not sure what this thing is. Here's a picture of it. Yellow gas. Unbelievable. So what happened here in the United States after the eclipse? Well, apparently Americans forgot how to put on sunscreen, drink plenty of water, and we're all hypochondriacs according to the news. Because they're saying that the reason why many eclipse watchers got sick after the eclipse was from the heat. I mean, these people exposed themselves. They're making all these excuses as to why people got sick after the eclipse, but they're all different. Here they're saying that we're all hypochondriacs, that this headache and nausea that everybody was getting was from the UV radiation. They laugh at us. Oh, Google searches about the eclipse and hypochondriac. Nothing to see here. Move along. You guys are all just sick. You guys are all just, this is just all in your head. Here were the Google searches. Look at this. People were sick. Their eyes were hurting, heads were hurting, nausea, flu-like symptoms. These were all the questions that people had. But according to these news outlets, you guys are just a bunch of hypochondriacs.